Hello, my name is Luciano Oliveira. I am a Brazilian attorney, and today I'm going to be answering this question. How do I determine the most cost-effective transfer method of money to Brazil based on the amount I'm sending? And the answer is, it depends on how much money you're sending. If you're sending up to $10,000, you may want to use an app such as Wise, Remitly, Western Union, or MoneyGram, right? And if you're sending more, you're probably gonna need to use a traditional bank or a currency exchange bank. If you're using the apps, you can easily compare the rates. All the main apps, they are gonna tell you upfront what the cost is gonna be for the transaction. So if you have time in your hands, just go there and compare the apps. They change the rates every now and then, right? You as a customer has the power of comparing, and they as the service provider have the power to change the numbers to make you do some legwork to check the best rate. So this is it for the apps. For the banks, usually commercial banks like the banks in Brazil. And by the way, whenever you're sending money to Brazil, it's going to be the Brazilian bank who's going to determine the final rate. It doesn't matter whatever your source bank tells you about the rate, because the source bank is basically just sending the currency. They are not handling the exchange. Only after the Brazilian bank gets access to the currency is that when the exchange is actually going to happen. And this is fully controlled by the Brazilian bank. Okay, so whatever your bank, let's say if you're in the US, whatever the US bank, Bank of America, Chase, Western Union tells you about the rate is not going to hold. That's just a reference. But once the money gets in Brazil, that's when they are going to affect the exchange. Commercial banks, they usually have a not so good rate because they have the physical branches. They also know they have the recipient as their client, so they kind of have a grip on the recipient. So they work with larger spreads. Spread is like the percentage of the money that they are going to retain as part of their compensation. So commercial banks get compensated more. Currency exchange banks, usually they are like a mono branch. They have a couple of branches, and they are more cost effective. And in addition to that, they specialize in currency exchange. They know how to do it more efficiently, and they know if they don't offer a decent rate, guess what? Clients are going to go to a different bank, right? So our recommendation when it gets to banks, work with currency exchange banks. Just remember, don't get too attached, to rates and cost effective, because when you're dealing with Brazil, there is always a risk of scammers. You gotta be 100% sure about who you are sending the money to. It's pretty common for people to send the money to scammers because they don't know better. Another thing is if you don't have all the paperwork completely nailed from the get-go, there is a huge risk of getting your money entangled at the compliance level, and it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for banks to hold a transfer, the Brazilian bank, right, to hold this transfer for several days or even several weeks before releasing the money into the recipient. And if the recipient doesn't provide every single document asked by the compliance, guess what? The Brazilian bank will simply send this money back to the source, because the Brazilian central bank applies huge fines if the Brazilian bank doesn't follow every single procedure about anti-money laundering and other requirements to make sure that this money is coming from a legitimate source. I hope this information was helpful. Follow us for more tips on currency exchange. Ask your question below if you have a question about this theme, and I hope to see you in our next video.